Hi everyone and welcome to another out and about video, and today we're back here at a place known as Holden Wood. And for those who regularly follow our videos and our content, you will know that we came here about 3 weeks ago to tell the tale of Maria Whitaker, who was sadly found drowned in a lodge to my left in one of the old mills that is no longer here. However, today we're going to go along Holden Wood Reservoir and we're going to uncover the story, the sad tragedy of a man who was around 52 years of age, and he was known as Stephen Harrison. So just like Cafe Reservoir and the story that we retold of Ernest Rodwell just the other week, this has also been drained. This is Holden Wood Reservoir where our story today takes place. But look, you can just see how much the water's gone down since we were last here 3 weeks ago when we did the tale of Maria Whitaker, which is just over in that direction. You can see the structure in place here. Normally that would be totally covered, submerged with water, but yeah, wow, I mean, we've never seen again this reservoir as low as what it is today. We can just make out all the features now. And our tale, like I said, it takes place here back in 1907, the story of Stephen Harrison, and we'll get more into the details and the is it topology or geography of this area the further into the story we get, because it does play an important role to the events that took place, and how obviously a body was recovered from this water. So who was Stephen Harrison, and why was his life cut short in such tragic circumstances here back in 1907? Well, we know he was a married man, and he was married to a lady called Mary Ann Ashworth in 1880. Together they had many children, but unfortunately one or two of those children died early on in age, and what we'll do, I'll mention them later on in the video, because I think that plays an important role as to why certain events unfolded here. But from all accounts, Stephen, at least 10 weeks leading up to his death, if not 2 years leading up to his death, he'd been suffering from severe depression from what I'm reading. He lost a daughter called Betsy in 1905, and she died of ptomaine poisoning. Now, ptomaine poisoning, we don't really hear it of that name anymore, but basically it's tainted food. And back in the early 1800s, mid 1800s and into the 1900s, a lot of people died from ptomaine poisoning. And what it was, a lot of the times, it was food that had been put into tins, but it contained a bacteria that led to severe food poisoning, and in many cases it led to death. Now, Stephen and his wife Mary lost a child called Betsy back in 1905, and Stephen took it badly, perhaps more so than his wife Mary, and he never recovered from the loss of his daughter. But like I said, she wasn't the first child who they lost at such a young age, but for some reason this one loss hit him hard. Now again, you can just make out just how drained the reservoir is, and like I said in the previous video, the Ernest Rodwell video, I've never seen the reservoirs this low in this neck of the woods. I mean, look at it. I mean, it's completely drained. Nothing. I mean, they've even got sheep playing on the flatland now in the distance. It's incredible, it really is. You can see just how jagged the sides are. And just another bit off topic, when my father was alive, when I was a kid, we used to go fishing just in that direction. We used to walk along that side and we used to do a bit of fishing just over there. But again, all the years I've never seen it this low and this empty. Dry riverbeds or reservoir beds. It's absolutely mental. I think it was around 10 weeks prior to Stephen's death. He'd been totally missing from work all that time. But over the 2 years before that, he'd been in and out of work for the same company, but it was just totally, I presume because of ill health, depression, but he just totally lost all the will to carry on day-to-day living. He also tried to take his own life a couple of times before 1907, but you know, fortunately he was stopped. But yeah, 2 years leading up to his death, and especially the last 10 weeks, he just totally disregarded work. Now, I think it was the day before, maybe the 4th of April, he went into work. He found out that his looms had been taken over by another employee. Basically, he'd been sacked. Now, he took this really badly, and he was starting to fret over where he was going to get money to help, you know, obviously look after the uptake of his children and obviously his wife. He took it really badly, but you can understand why he'd lost his job, because like I said, he just totally neglected his work for so long, and I think the mill owners had just had enough at this point. We don't know if the mill owner had took pity on Stephen for as long as they did, because he'd lost a couple of children in the late 1800s, early 1900s. That could have been the case and why he wasn't sacked sooner. That's just all hearsay. But the fact is, the weekend before the tragedy that occurred here happened, I should say, he was actually released from his job. Now, on the 5th of April, Stephen was seen walking past Holden Farm, and I'm not quite sure where that is. It could well be one of the farms that used to be dotted around here. I'll have a look on the old OS maps and I'll put it over the top of this video if I found something. But he was seen walking past Holden Farm by a lady called Frances. I think it was Frances Metcalfe. Now, she told at the inquest later on, several days later, that it was acting in a strange manner. Stephen was acting in a really strange and bizarre manner, but he never wandered down the path directly towards this reservoir. Instead, he walked down a main road. But on the 5th of April, he was reported missing by his wife. He never returned home. So obviously people went out, and his coat and his cap was found somewhere on the embankment, somewhere along this side of the reservoir. Now, the police were instantly informed, and they came out and they started a search party. Now, the reason why they found out it was Stephen's possessions is because inside one of his coat pockets they found a membership ticket for one of the clubs further on in Haslingden. So obviously they could point out straight away whose belongings they were. Now, obviously, when his wife was made aware that they found his possessions, and then his history of obviously trying to commit suicide prior to 1907 all came out, the police were worried. So they instigated a search party in this neck of the woods instantly. And for the next 5 days, they spent out in the waters on a little raft, using grappling hooks to try to dredge and drag the bottom of the reservoir in the hope of finding Stephen's body. Now, obviously, when I say in the hope of finding Stephen's body. I don't think anybody really hoped that he had committed suicide, so perhaps hoping to find his body was the wrong term. But they certainly had suspicions that he had done himself some harm, like I said, based on his previous record of trying to commit suicide. But for 5 days they spent dragging this once full reservoir, and it was Inspector McVeigh who, I think it was on the Tuesday, the following Tuesday, he called the search party off just for a few hours, because they'd worked tirelessly ever since the 5th of April right through to the following Tuesday. They worked 24 hours. The police were on this raft, this dinghy, using grappling hooks to try to find Stephen's body in the reservoir. The men were tired, the authorities were absolutely knackered from 24 hours searching, so McVeigh called the search party off just for a few hours so people could get a breather and a rest. Now, the following day, on the Wednesday, McVeigh was out 50 yards or so into the reservoir, about halfway into the reservoir, and by all accounts it was at least 50 feet deep. Now, the grappling irons, they tugged on something. Now, what I have to reiterate is the bottom of the reservoir, it's a jagged, uneven surface, unlike Carfay Reservoir further up, which it's quite smooth and rounded. Holden Wood Reservoir, however, is more jagged, and from all accounts it may have once been an old quarry that was obviously turned into the reservoir it is today. So there's a lot of jagged edges, there's no smooth sides to it, no smooth bottom. The police lost several grappling irons during the 5 days of searching for Stephen's body. They kept snapping and obviously getting caught in the rocks below the surface. But 5 days later, on the Wednesday, Stephen's lifeless body was finally taken from Holden Wood Reservoir. Now, normally there's no way we would ever get this close to the reservoir's edge, because here, where it's green, you can see this would actually be the sides of the reservoir. And if you look on the ground, you'll see are the oysters, mussels I should say, not oysters, but you'll see plenty of shells here. And apparently this reservoir it's quite well known for the shells and for the mussels to be here. I mean, look at this one. And I think these have been in the reservoir ever since its inception, way back in the 1800s. But like I said, we've never ever got this close to the reservoir's edge ever before. So we're walking in history basically, because I don't know when this last occurred, and I don't know when it's going to occur ever again. But we might as well see how far we can get, and we'll get some video footage, and we'll also get some photos taken. But this is where the tragedy of 1907 and poor Stephen Harrison took his own life, and it was somewhere in this neck of the reservoir. Now look at this. I'm not sure what kind of fish it is. Pike maybe. But this is what I mean about this reservoir being so low. How long that's been there, God knows, but yeah, this shows you just how dry this reservoir is. The inquest into the tragedy, Stephen drowning, took place on the 11th of April at the municipal offices. I think that is the town hall in Haslingden, I'm not quite sure. But his wife Mary, she gave evidence, like I said at the start, into Stephen's frame of mind, how he'd been greatly affected by the death of his daughter Betsy Alice back in 1906. And the thing is, it does seem, and from what I've read, it does seem plausible that he was suffering seriously from depression. I mean, back in the day, maybe you could argue depression wasn't spoke about like it is today, and so all these signs and signals were clearly missed. He tried to take his life, like I said, on a couple of occasions. Fortunately, he was stopped in doing so. But she did tell the jury that, you know, the death of his daughter Betsy Ellis, that was the one that seemed to have hit him the hardest. Now, like I said at the start, he did lose 2 or 3 children at early ages. One of the youngest, I think, was about 8 months or 9 months old. And what I'll do, I'll go through the names towards the end of this video, because I think this plays an important role also as to his frame of mind. I mean, to lose 2 or 3 children at such young ages, it must affect one's mental well-being. I mean, his wife must have been a strong character as well to get through what she did. Now, I think she died around about 1932, so she had quite a long life after his death. So she must have been a strong character, and fair play to her. But as for Stephen, like I said, the death, and I keep reiterating, the death of Betsy really hit him hard. Just found this on the riverbed, some kind of old, possibly pipe. But again, how long has that been covered in this reservoir over the years? Maybe 100 years, 200 years, it's hard to say. But yeah, just these little remnants. And let's just have a walk up here, because we've got another interesting feature. Vicky's just spotted it. We can't really miss it. But I mean, again, if anybody knows what this is it some old kind of, yeah, it feels like it could be some kind of rail track, you know, for probably the old mine carts back in the day when they were building this place. It's quite substantial enough to be something like that. But yeah, if anybody knows what that could be, but I'm thinking an old rail for the old mine carts, or the old carts back in the day, because let's not forget, just in this direction here is where the old quarries used to be, and the quarries are just on this side at the top, so that could well be an original, like I said, original line. Just spotted this next to the line, which is there. There's another part here, so this is definitely some kind of tramway or a cartway, and I'm thinking maybe they continue further round, and do they connect somehow to this moorland here, or do they cut right through and round? I do, on the OS maps, I do remember seeing some kind of line that used to go around the side of Holden Wood Reservoir. I'll put that over the top now, and I'll try and point out exactly what I mean. This could well be part of this. So what we're looking at here, this is proper history. This really is unexpected today, because we didn't come out really to look for remnants like this, but this definitely is history, and this is something we probably will never, we might not never see again in my lifetime. So to capture it now, it's mind-blowing, it really is. But this is definitely some kind of track for carts for the old quarries, maybe. You can just see it here, just there and just there. Now, I don't know if this is some kind of link off an old chain. Could well be, but that's definitely old. That's been in the water for some time. But again, this could all be linked to the old cart track. So yeah, I am going to take this home with me. I'm not going to leave it here any longer. I don't know if that's right or wrong, but that is definitely old. And there's history right there in my hands. This could date well back to what? Pre-1840s, 1850s. But yeah, neat find. There's another piece here. Is that some kind of nail, maybe? It's pointy. Did it used to go into the ground to pin something in? But wow, I mean, that's old as well. Definitely old. I brought my notebook with me today because, like I said, Stephen's life seems to be a fascinating one, up and prior to his death. And in the book I've wrote down a list of all his children's names and when they were born and when they died. But the three that we're going to concentrate on, and which I think plays an important role in this story, and I'll read them out to you. You've got Elizabeth Ellen Harrison, and she was born 31st of the 5th 1882, but she sadly passed away on the 15th of the 7th 1883. So you're talking maybe 12-13 months old when she passed away. So that would have hit the family extremely hard. You've also got Clara Harrison. She was born 9th of October 1883, but she passed away on the 1st of the 7th 1889. So she was nearly 6 years old, 5.5, 6 years old. And again, this would have hit the family hard, being such a young age. Any death of a child is going to hit anybody hard, isn't it, to be honest? And then obviously you had Betsy Alice. She was born 5th of August 1895, and she died, it was the 1st of July 1905, and it was this death of his daughter which seemed to hit him the hardest. She was pretty much nearly 10 years old. She was 9 at the time, but yeah, I keep saying it in this video, but from all accounts this one death hit him extremely hard. And then you had another daughter, Ellen Harrison, who was born 23rd of the 6th 1901, and she passed away on the 3rd of the 3rd 1902. So again, 9 months old. So that's 4 children, not 3 but 4 children who had died at such young ages. So you can understand why, can't you? Perhaps Stephen was struggling mentally, and like I said, it seems by all accounts, and from what I'm reading, his wife Mary, she was the strong one in the family. She's the one who were keeping it all together from all accounts, because they had other children as well. They had many, you know, plenty of sons, but it was these 4 deaths, the daughters, and the strange thing is they were all girls, they're all females. Make of that what you will, but yeah, it seems that Mary was the strong one of the family, knitting it all together. Now obviously back in the day, back in 1900s, early 1900s, I guess, like I said earlier on in the video, that perhaps depression wasn't talked about as much as it is today, mental health, and especially in men, because men were supposed to be the strong characters, weren't they? They were supposed to be the protectors of families. You know, they were supposed to keep feelings within. So I mean, again, I don't know much about this type of subject matter back in the early, well, mid to late 1800s, early 1900s. Perhaps you guys can tell me more about it, you know, you've studied it more, but I'm thinking maybe depression, what men were feeling at the time, it was just never spoke about. So Stephen was fighting his inner demons, wasn't he? You know, again, he just lost his job. I can understand why he lost his job, so I'm not blaming the mill owner for what happened here at Holden Wood back in 1907 by any means. I can see why, but yeah, it seems like Stephen was definitely battling some kind of inner demon. The children of Stephen and Mary, the 4, well, definitely the three of his young children who sadly passed away at young ages, they're all interred at St James's Church, which is further on in Haslingden. We've been there many times. Now we are planning on visiting the churchyard in the next couple of days to hopefully find their resting places, and we're doing this mainly because we can't find the resting place of Betsy, the daughter whose death hit Stephen so badly, and neither can we find the resting place of Stephen himself. So we're thinking if we can find one or more of the graves of his other 3 children, they could all be interred in a family vault or a family grave, a family plot, and if so, hopefully Stephen's name and obviously that of Betsy will be on it. But it does seem strange how we've checked online and we just can't find where Stephen was interred in April, shortly after his death. So like I said, we're going to go up there within the next day or two, and we're going to continue this video from there. Now, it's kind of strange how where there's mass bodies of water such as these reservoirs, because like I said, there's 3 in total. You've got Holden Vale, I always forget what the middle one's called, but then you've got Carthay in the background. And so much tragedy has occurred in this stretch of Grane. So many suicides, so many what I would class as unsolved cases of drownings have occurred here, such as Ernest Rodwell, like I said, at Carthay, such as Maria Whitaker, which was in the lodge just on the opposite side of Holden Wood Reservoir. And we also found another tale, which I'm not going to go into too much, again that occurred in the lodge where Maria Whitaker took her life, and this occurred 4 years after Maria Whitaker. But I guess where you're going to get large areas of water, mass areas of water, I suppose you are going to get a lot of tragedies. Some accidental, some, like I said, suicide, some unsolved. I just hope you guys who watch these videos aren't going to get too bored with the content that we're doing. But we're primarily doing these stories, these short stories, and I mentioned it a few videos back, of tales that occurred in and around where we live here in Haslingden and in Helmshore, the little village just further down. But I find them interesting, and I think we should respect the victims in all these stories and tell their stories, you know, give them a new lease of life, if it means it's in media formats such as YouTube videos, such as our website, such as the podcast. The names will never be forgotten that way, will they? So I hope you guys find them interesting as much as me and Vicky find it interesting coming out and locating these places and retelling the stories, because I do feel like, say, people like this should never ever be forgotten. I'm not quite sure when this reservoir was first formed. Like I said during the story, that the police, they lost several grappling irons in the surface of the water because the edges are that jagged at the bottom. It got to the point where they were really struggling, the police at the time, because they were losing so many grappling irons. It was becoming a bit dangerous as well, if you will. So Inspector McVeigh thought about using divers, because they'd been used in a previous case somewhere else in the country, and I can't really recall where that was. So the idea of using divers was first mentioned, and I think this is why on the Tuesday or the Wednesday when the search party was abruptly stopped just for a few hours, I think this is when they were toying with the idea of bringing divers in to try and help with the search. Now, the diver was never used, and like we know, it was Inspector McVeigh was on one of the rafts or the dinghies. He was on there when the grappling irons actually caught hold of the cardigan pocket of Stephen. But yeah, I actually don't know when the quarry was turned, if it was a quarry, was turned into the reservoir. I'll try and find out. If I do find the year, I'll put it down below. But it's definitely old. We know it's old because when we did the story of Maria Whitaker, I think it was 1861, just opposite, this reservoir was here then. So it could well be 150, 200 years old perhaps. But if I find here, I will put it down below. So like I said, we are going to make our way up to St James's Church over the next day or two, and we're going to try and find the graves of Stephen and his 4 children who sadly passed away at young ages. If we don't find anything, obviously I'm going to end this video here, and I hope you've enjoyed it. It's another fascinating tale. Stephen, by all accounts, like I said, he had a very interesting and varied life until it was cut relatively short. Nobody can know what truly went on in Stephen's head as he made the trip here to Holden Wood Reservoir back, I think it was on the 5th of April 1907. Nobody can ever truly understand. Nobody can, well, I don't think you can criticise anybody who does what they do to that extreme. Some might say it's selfish because he still had children at home, he had a wife to care for, but we do not know what was going on in Stephen's mind. And all I can say is, rest in peace, Stephen. I hope you have found peace in all these years. Like I said, it's such a sad tale, isn't it? Now, if you did enjoy this video and you like this kind of content, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're kind of releasing videos on a regular basis now. We've got kind of a pattern going. But if you do enjoy them, don't forget to give us a like, comment with what you feel and what you think of this case and all the other videos we do. We've got loads. We've actually got loads more coming. Not all just around here, so stick with us. We are going to be visiting other places. Now, this is interesting, and if you folks want to get behind it, all the details really, just freeze frame the actual video now, get all the details off it. But an ancient hawthorn hedgerow planted around 1827, if given the go-ahead for 131 housing development, Taylor Wimpey's ecological assessment 2019 states, the hedgerow along Holcombe Road will be lost. So we're talking 1827, we're talking well over 100 years of history being lost forever, yet again, because of more housing developments. It's ridiculous. So please take some action, folks. I might even put all the links and stuff down below for you to make your displeasure known. So we're here back at St James's in the hunt for the final resting places of 3 of Stephen's children. That is Elizabeth, Ellen and Clara. We're not sure if Betsy is here or if indeed Stephen is interred here, but we're going to have a look around the graves now, and we're going to look for the surname Harrison to begin with, and hopefully that will prove successful, because like I said, we know 3 of his children are here, but we don't know if Betsy's here, and we don't know if Stephen's here. But there's a lot of gravestones to check, so we're going to get on with it now, and hopefully, just fingers crossed, we do find something. One thing I will say about this churchyard, and I do love it, I think it's a fantastic place to come and visit. Even though it's relatively small, you do have some unique headstones and graves, such as this one for a lady called Rachel, wife of Thomas Livesey Ormrod, who died in 1871, I think it is, age 25. But yeah, I mean, when we get to the back end of this part of the graveyard, it does kind of get a little bit more treacherous, because I think it's the older side. As you can see, you can actually see the old like wrought iron railings are there around, and obviously the stonework, but this is definitely the older side. 1887, this one. But we're going to keep on looking for the Harrison graves. I found 2 Harrisons, by the way, up to now, but neither of them are who we're looking for. So let's look at this one. See, this is quite a unique one, quite tall and sadly hidden away at the back end of the graveyard. But definitely unique. One headstone I have just found, and it's nothing to do with this story, but it's quite strange how this grave, Mary Ellen, wife of, is it Cleophas F. Sadler? How this part is, it's still got white. I don't know if it's been repainted or what, but why is this bit highlighted in white and all the rest of it is faded? Because when you look at the year, 1857 to 1921, it seems a bit odd. Why one name and not the others? If anybody knows why that could be the case, again, comment down below. At the moment though, we are really struggling. We found plenty of Harrisons, but not the Harrisons in this story. It is literally like a needle in a haystack when we come to do these type of videos, because even though we know they're buried here using a website called Lanks OPC, more often than not they don't actually give you grave numbers. Sometimes they do, other times they don't. And in this instance, even though we know 3 of his children are definitely buried here, we don't know what headstone number they're under. So it's very difficult to even narrow down possibly where they could be. And if you look, the graves, they literally just go on. And there's also plenty of graves underneath our feet which they're simply no longer, well, they're no longer viewable to the public. It's long since been forgotten. Yeah, so I think this might be another dud when it comes to looking for the final resting places. Like I said, they just go on and on in that direction. Right, we'll make our way around to the back of the church, just to see if there's anything around the back of there. They could well be right on the foot here, like in this area, for all we know. Could well be hidden under all these dead grass cuttings and whatnot. We've had a walk down there, we've had a walk down there, can't find anything on the Harrisons. But this is what I mean, you'll see it, there's just literally all this space all covered over. Right, we're going to go behind the church in that direction, and something might just appear. Well, I don't think we're going to be successful in finding any of the graves of the Harrison family, which is a shame. Everything, well, it's time, isn't it? Time has just overcovered everything, unfortunately. It's making it so difficult to read some of the inscriptions on the headstones. So we're going to end the video here. I do hope you've enjoyed it. We've tried our best, like I said, to find some of the resting places, but alas, we've been beaten yet again. But it is another story we could come back to, and hopefully in winter time, when a lot more of the shrubbery and the grass cuttings and they've all died down, we might be able to come back and revisit this tale and hopefully find maybe the final resting places. But if you enjoyed this story, please don't forget to comment on it down below. Give us a big thumbs up, because there's more content like this coming all the time. We seem to be doing more videos on a regular basis. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, more importantly, so you don't miss these videos. But in the meantime, as I always say at the end of every video, I want you to take care, more importantly, take care of each other. And in the meantime, I will be back soon with another tale from our dark but illustrious past.